Hello everyone, welcome you all in this video lecture. So in this video tutorial, we will discuss about virus versus bacteria. So in this tutorial, we will learn about the similarities and differences between virus and bacteria and comparison between the virus and bacteria. So let's start with the introductive part. So before moving to the topic and comparing between virus and bacteria, it's very important to understand some basic facts about the bacteria as well as about virus. So let's start with the bacteria and understand some characteristic features of bacteria. So basically the bacteria are considered as one of the oldest and most primitive life forms found in the earth, and they are prokaryotic and unicellular organisms. So bacteria are single-celled and very small organisms that cannot be seen by naked eyes, and they can be seen by the help of electron microscope, and that's why they are called as microscopic organisms. And they are prokaryotic organisms which lack a well-defined nucleus and also not found several membrane-bound cytoplasmic organelles in its structure. Now the bacteria are very versatile in nature. They can be found everywhere in extremely inhospitable conditions. They can be found in extremely hot conditions as well as in very cold conditions also. So that's why they are found worldwide and called as very versatile in nature. Now bacteria are beneficial as well as infectious for humans. There are several bacteria which act as probiotics and help in several other things like in bakery or like antibiotics and many other things. But several species of bacteria are infectious which can cause different types of infections, and they are pathogenic in nature. So they cause different types of diseases in the humans. So basically the bacteria are a type of living organisms which can be pathogenic or can be beneficial for humans. Now the bacteria consist of outermost layer which is called as cell wall, and this cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan layer or muramic acid. So basically the cell wall is only present in plants and it is not found in animals. So the structure of bacteria is sometimes resembled to plants and also resemble to animals in some conditions. So that's why they are considered as a connecting link between plants and animals. Now understand about the another organism which are called as viruses. So basically the viruses are non-cellular and microscopic agents. They are also very small in nature and can be seen only with the help of electron microscope. But beside the bacteria, viruses are non-cellular organisms, which means that they not have a particular cellular structure. So that's why they cannot replicate on itself, and they need a host cell or another cell machinery to replicate and to increase their number. So for this they found a host cell and attached with the host cell, and then they enter their genetic material into the host cell and divide themselves. So basically the viruses have not any cellular structure and they are only composed of genetic material and proteins. So the genetic material can be DNA or RNA, and that's why they are named as RNA viruses and DNA viruses. And this genetic material is enclosed under the envelope which is made up of protein, and this protein covering is called as capsid. But as other non-living organisms, viruses can also be crystallized. So they have some facts or some features like non-living organisms, and like they don't have any cellular structure or they don't have any living cytoplasmic organelles, but they have some features like cellular or like living organisms, like viruses can be replicated using another host cell. So basically according to their features, Viruses can be considered as connecting link between living and non-living organisms. Now, viruses are also pathogenic in nature and they cause different types of disease in humans, but they are not beneficial. Sometimes in the genetic field they are also used as plasmid. So now let's compare the structure of bacteria and virus. So here this is the presentation and diagram of virus. So here we can see this is a viral diagram. Here in the center and core of the diagram we can see a viral genome, which can be DNA or RNA, and this genetic material is enclosed under the nucleocapsid, which is a proteinous layer or a covering which covers the genetic material of the virus, and this genetic material is enclosed under the envelope which is made up of proteins, and there are envelope proteins which are called as capsids, and there are some viral teguments in its structure. Beside this, there is the structure of bacterial cell, and here we can see this cell composed of a outermost layer known as cell wall, which is followed by the cell membrane, and inside the cell membrane there is a cytoplasm which have different organelles like ribosomes and a flagella, and it also contains plasmid and genetic material which is found in the cytoplasm of the cell. Now let's compare the bacteria and virus. So when we compare the bacteria and virus, the bacteria are single-celled organisms, but in case of virus, they are non-cellular infectious agents which have only a genetic material covered by a proteinous layer. So in bacteria, ribosomes are present which are responsible for protein synthesis. But in the case of virus, there is not any cytoplasmic organelle is present. So therefore, ribosomes are also absent in viruses. So the bacteria constitute a large domain of prokaryotic organisms, but the viruses are only infectious agents that can replicate inside the living organisms or inside the host organisms which are infected by these viruses. So they are not considered as cellular organisms or living organisms. Now there are some similarities also between the bacteria and viruses. So there some common similarities include both of the organisms are microscopic in nature. Both the bacteria and viruses are very small in structure. However, viruses are much smaller than bacteria, but both of them are microscopic organisms that cannot be seen by naked eyes. And both the bacteria and viruses lacked two nucleus in its structure. The genetic material of bacteria remains in the cytoplasm and the virus have a outermost covering or the capsid, but both don't have nucleus. The bacteria and virus have the genetic material of either DNA called as deoxyribonucleic acid or sometimes as RNA called as ribonucleic acid. And both the bacteria and viruses have infectious properties. Both can act as a pathogen for different diseases and cause different types of bacterial as well as viral infections in humans as well as in other higher animals. Now let's understand about the differences between bacteria and viruses. So there are several differences between the bacteria and virus. Like the bacteria have a living organism and which have the outermost covering called as cell wall. So the bacterial cell wall is composed of peptidoglycan layer or lipopolysaccharides, which is also called as muramic acid. But in the case of virus, there is not any cell wall present. The protein coat present instead of the cell wall, which is called as capsule. Now the bacteria are considered as living organisms or cellular organisms, but the viruses are cannot considered as living organisms, but they are considered between the connecting link between living and non-living organisms because they resemble both the properties of living as well as of non-living organisms. Now The nucleus is not present in both bacteria and viruses, and the bacteria reproduce by the help of fission. So basically, they do not need any host for reproduction. They reproduce by the method of fission into binary fission into two other cellular organelles, and that's why they make two bacteria. But in the case of virus, they need host dependent reproduction. So basically they introduce their genetic material into the cell of the host, and here they divide their genetic material and reproduce into several numbers of viruses. Now the bacteria have the genetic material of DNA or RNA, and this genetic material is present in the cytoplasm of the bacteria. But in the case of virus, it do not contain any cytoplasm, and the genetic material of these viruses enveloped by the protein coat, which is called as capsid. So there are several other differentiation, like the disease caused by bacteria can be treated by the help of antibiotics, but in the case of viruses, they cannot be treated by any type of antibiotics. And bacteria have several enzymes, but viruses have a very low number of enzymes which are proteinous in nature. Both of the organisms have virulence nature, and both can cause different types of disease. Now let's understand and discuss about the disease or infections caused by bacteria and viruses. So bacteria cause different types of diseases or called as bacterial infections, and they also cause several bacterial meningitis with several species. So there are different bacterial diseases like typhoid, which is caused by Salmonella typhi, cholera, which is caused by Vibrio cholerae, pneumonia or called as bacterial pneumonia caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae, several types of meningitis which are also called as bacterial meningitis, and there are different types of bacterial species which cause meningitis in humans, and some food poisoning are also caused by bacteria. Now let's understand about the viral diseases. So the common cold, influenza, smallpox, AIDS, and different types of other diseases like COVID-19 and many other diseases caused by viruses. The AIDS is caused by the HIV virus, and all the other like SARS virus, coronavirus, and there are different other examples of viruses which cause different disease in humans. Now the treatment of bacterial disease and viral disease can also vary. Like the bacterial disease can be treated by the help of several antibiotics. These antibiotics works on different mechanisms like disrupt of cell wall of bacteria and inhibit the protein synthesis and many other mechanisms. However, there are some gram-negative bacteria which have resistance for antibiotics due to their cell wall composition. But the viral diseases are treated by the help of several antiviral drugs, and they cannot be treated with the help of antibiotic. So the antibiotics cannot treat the viral diseases, and there are several vaccines which are used to prevent the viral infections like polio and many other infections which are viral diseases, and they can be prevented by the help of vaccines.